Thanks for this opportunity, Lee and team. So I'm Meryl Suresh. I'm a platform engineer in Capgemini Digital Platform Engineering practice. It's going to be an engaging session, so expect some Q&A, some puzzles, etc. So that's my constellation, AI generated. I predominantly work these days on AWS and Kubernetes ecosystems, but over a 30-year career, I've worked on various languages and platforms, done on-prem data center migrations, etc. So a bit of everything, you could say. But these days, last 6 years have predominantly been on public sector UK government projects. Our first activity, so you can take those blocks, let's say 30 seconds, and see what you come up with, okay? Timer starts now. So use those blocks, see how you would do it, and then let's look at the next slide of how I conceived using these slides, okay? A quiet moment for you, 30 seconds. How many of you are curious to see the next slide? Right. So the topic was evolving role of platform engineers in data and AI. No one can just get their way out of AI. Last year, I transitioned from typical running server workloads into the data and AI workloads in one of the largest data-focused central government. So some of my experience comparing to the rest of the public sector organizations where we run services to serve the nation, talk about visa processing, talk about immigration or border force, etc. This is a bit different. And my experience was there are significant gaps within the data and AI space from a platform engineering context. The moment somebody thinks about data and AI, people think, oh, a scientist or someone who is building an AI system or a generative AI application useful for various purposes. And when somebody thinks about data, there's a data scientist playing out with the models. Yes, but also there is a gap in the engineering side predominantly that I came across was the DevOps activities and the data-focused activities do not match. And we are going to see why it is important that platform engineers look at those things and also create ourselves opportunities to get into those spaces, especially with the AI complementing skills. So how I see is it's very highly opinionated. This is my view. I classify data security and technology as principles, founding principles for the platform and the businesses that are built on the platform to thrive upon. Why do I say as founding principles, talk about data and security and technology? It's agnostic. So you want to look at data more in terms of the quality, in terms of what governance we need to have, security measures, talk about, most of you may have come across the recent cyber attacks in some of the retail organizations. All of these, the data, security, and technology are not shift left, they are shifted down. So they form the founding principles. If you were to relate this to a construction, mixing of cement, mixing of sand, water, etc., to make concrete, so your foundation. So these are the founding principles that would allow us to build platforms. It could be a data platform, it could be an AI platform. We don't need to go to that level, but that platform needs to have a very strong foundation with the founding principles on. This will allow the business to thrive, to innovate. You build Gen AI applications, or you build data applications, or you build traditional, web or server applications. You need this foundation. Shailet, I mentioned, there's a lot of cultural change and mindset that needs to be happening and shifted to how we used to work before and how we got to work in the space of data and AI from a context of platform engineers. One thing I have seen is the value can be brought to light if we understood the business, if we understood the business more. Who are our customers? Do we understand our customers? Do we know who do we serve internally and externally? What are the trade-offs that we need to be talking to our architects and to the businesses? Many times businesses say, I've seen this, why can't you do this? Well, there is a trade-off. Anyone working in the engineering, you would know about the engineering triangle, cost, quality, and time. So what are the trade-offs are we making while we bring up solutions? So we need to think along those lines as platform engineers. And at the same time, be aware of the various functional frictions that you would come across in your day-to-day work life. You could be, later in the slides, we will look at different personas. But the friction exists. How much ever we try to be good within the organizations, there's something that will always be there. So be aware of that functional friction. And one final point is the use of AI. AI, use that as a complement, as your assistant to get the most out of it. So most of our public sector organizations, we are very much pro-AI, how we want to make use of the AI. So try to use that to complement, bust your myths and assumptions. That's how I would go with the use of AI. The next one, there's a lovely picture. It's another 30 seconds for you. Imagine what the next slide would be. Again, there is a flow of information for these slides. Right. Understand your platform personas. So when I walked into the data department, the first thing my then CTO told, just go around the business and see what they are doing. So I didn't have a role description. I didn't have a responsibility laid out for me. There was only one message by the CTO, just go around. And one of the things I came across, and it was shocking, was that there were so many personas, and each persona, most of the time, do not know that the other one exists. So imagine, I don't know, in platform engineering, if you're network focused and you didn't know there is a security team or a security engineer, or you didn't know about an observability engineer, or you didn't know that a data is all about data scientists. But there are different personas within the data space. You've got data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, data governance people, data owners. But most of the time, I came across that they don't realize that there are other personas that they need to work with. One of the learnings for me was to publish the personas. What personas are we having within our system? There is a reason for us needing to understand this as we build platforms. We are building platforms for the business users and other users to make use of it. So if you're building something and you've missed out half the personas, I bet there will be shadow platforms like shadow IT. In very large organizations, public sector, where we deal with thousands of internal developers, engineers, and other platform users, it is very key for us to understand the personas. Of course, we can say, analysts can get that, but us having an understanding of those personas, it will help us deliver quality stuff. So that's one thing that I wanted to capture. And if you don't get this, then we wouldn't be able to serve our business needs. We wouldn't be able to serve our business goals. There are a few things. You don't need to share this with you. It's about understanding those personas and the use cases where those personas are. For example, I had a recent conversation. So we are in the process of rolling out GitHub Copilot and other AI enablement to some of our departments. One of the things was a department had gone and started rolling out, but they were not looking at what security measures need to be met by each an individual department. So if you're working in highly regulated industries like finance industries or in public sector, there are a number of regulatory requirements we have to meet. So we could be working in the same organization, but actually someone working in one specific department, they would be under more scrutiny than another department. So how do you make sure that the platform services we build cater to those needs? So we need to understand those use cases. And again, this is where having AI as your companion could really help. Go and ask those assumptions. How do I understand this persona? So in this recent case, I was talking to a data scientist. I took 3 use cases with me. And I'm thinking, I think I've done a good job. Let me go and have a chat with this data scientist. 5 minutes it all took for me to realize, no, I don't really understand your job. And over the next half an hour, I came up more enriched, like I understood to some extent what they were doing and what our platform was not delivering to them. So talk about continuous improvements. I let her mention, you go about looking at your own examples, see where you have failed, where you could improve. This is one example, especially if you're working in the data and the AI space. It's a lot of iterations need to happen before you get a good solution. You don't need to get things perfect. Don't aim for perfection. You're not going to get that. But it's about having that mindset, again, shift in the mindset to learn, and then how you're going to have those learnings applied in your life. So there are some use cases. The next one, as engineers, we need to understand the various workloads we could be building, we could be deploying, we could be managing. We need to understand that workload management life cycle entirely. If we are owning platforms, doesn't matter whether it is a data platform, AI platform, or a typical cloud platform or on-prem, we need to understand what workloads are being run. And not all workloads are equal. If you're working in the data and AI space and if you haven't spent some time in understanding how those workloads are run and how they would manifest in a production environment, then it's very, very difficult to support your business goals. One of the things I personally have seen in the data space, if we were looking at scaling side, or if you're looking at memory footprints, and we associate with that to a typical web workload or a microservice workload, it would be mind-boggling, the amount of memory that we use, etc. The way we could scale is also different, depending on the architecture, the AI architecture, or understanding of the various AI platforms provide. So anyone getting into the data and the AI space, putting time in understanding the workloads are going to be different. Though they could be containerized, the way they would be running would be different. And the way they would manifest their problems would be different. So and you throw in security or legal compliance or security requirements, then all of this compounds into a very complex setup. So we need to understand that. So how do we understand our workloads? So one example I came across when I went into the data department, the first thing was, oh, our workloads worked in this environment, but actually we didn't have it. We were running a streaming. Observability, lacking big time, because the system was, whoever put the system together, again, lack of understanding of the personas and the use cases, how the platforms use those services. So streaming service observability is completely different to a batch mode observability. So you're constantly running data through it, your data throughput, the amount of load coming through it, vary all the time. So how are you going to react, and where it is going to manifest itself in an environment, and how would you spot that? So understanding the workloads is very, very key, not just from building solutions, but it is also about how do you scale, how do you secure them as well. Let's summarize some nice takeaways. You can have your eat-in pizzas in a short while. So I have got 6 takeaways. And all of this are related to culture and mindset. Get these embedded in your organizations, in your teams. It's very, very difficult. We are still trying to get through. But we can make a start as engineers. Because sometimes there is this myth that engineers can't communicate well. They don't really convey their message to the business well. We can take that and change how we operate, how we communicate. So one thing is establish very clear communication. As engineers, we could be intending to say something, but that would be heard in a very different way to the business or to another function. So speak in the language that they understand. In the last DevOps, we had an excellent speaker who mentioned speak the language in terms of finance to people who would be your business sponsors for a technical project. Tell them why you need to do this. If you don't, what is the cost? Think along those lines. Think about the persona. If you're going to talk to your business sponsor, I need to do this so that we can help your business, but go with a very strong argument, illustration that they understand, not you understand, that they understand. Otherwise, technical projects don't get anywhere. You don't get the buy-in. It's to get the top-down buy-in, we need to talk in the language that the top people understand. Roles and responsibilities. It's very, very important because there is a lot of overlap, and we spoke about be aware of functional friction. Everyone thinks with AI, I know what DevOps is, I know how this pipeline works, I can go and do a chat request, or I can use a coding assistant, I can get things generated. But we also need to respect the boundaries of certain roles and what the responsibilities are. Having that laid out helps the team grow and also thrive and also share knowledge between the stuff. Think about tooling. Cross-functional tooling, very, very important. What do we mean by that? The tool that you use, it's not just for you, or your function. It is for others as well. I came across a use case. How many of you are familiar with the AWS here? Right, quite a few. Right. Sorry, GCP. So on the data department, we use Athena quite a lot. One of the things that people don't realize is that's used by a number of personas, your data engineers, your data engineering developers, your data analysts, data scientists, but each one have a very different view of, Athena, I need to do these things. I need more privileges because I'm a data scientist. Whereas security and the cyber operations are like, no, you can't have that. The reason is they don't understand. Each one don't understand they need to do certain function. For that, they need this access. So how do we enable them? So cross-functional tooling, having that understanding, your tool is not just for your function. It's used by different functions. So have a thought about it. How is the tool being used? Where it is being used? And when we build the platforms, then we can think about, I need to have a security overlay so that I enable. Security is an enabler. Remember, please. They are not your blocker. They are your enablers. How do I go and talk to security? These functions need this tool. How do I enable that? Collaboration. There are different aspects to collaboration. So I've listed on the disciplinary side of things, i.e., again, going back to the functions that we have. We need to understand what disciplines use certain tools or processes, and how do we collaborate better. Especially in very large organizations, even within a department, within a particular project team or a program, we would come across a number of different processes. So each discipline, they would say, no, this is how we have been doing it. This is how we would want to do it. This suits us. You talk about release templates. I can tell you in my team, we have got 5 release templates. And when I go to the release management, they're like, just get me one. Don't bring me 5 different. So how do we collaborate? It's about the toil reduction. So collaboration is to reduce toil. It is bringing those synergies together. Why do we need to collaborate and do this knowledge sharing and stuff like that? You know, you can easily build your systems to scale if you understood what you're trying to achieve. You'll be able to do it in an efficient manner as well, and in a secure manner. You'll be able to do in an efficient and secure manner. We've spoken about the collaboration and the cultural mind shift. One thing I advocate in my areas of work, and I wish you take this as part of one of the takeaways, is this inclusivity. Not everyone understands verbose text. Having some images does help. Use your AI companions to generate some images. Try to bring some visuals. Try to do some architectural diagrams. So don't put everything in text. Not everyone reads them as well. So consider your inclusivity. And also when you're doing comms about certain things, think about who would want to know about this. You know, when you talk about releases, you know, not just the change management. That could be other management people, security people, or your end customers. They would all want to know. So that's a heat map of platform engineers in my world. And of course, you can add a ton of different stuff to this. So we are all engineers at the end. We could have some specialisms, throw in data and AI, but we are all platform engineers at the end. So if you follow this, you have very strong founding principles, laying the foundation for the business to thrive and achieve the goals. Thank you.